still remember the exact moment it happened. The sleek conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's skyline. The polished mahogany table reflecting the overhead lights. I just closed a $2 million logistics deal, the biggest in Vanguard Access history. My hands still smelled like the cheap ink from the contract I'd signed hours earlier. Bradley Monroe leaned back in his leather chair, his Harvard class ring catching the light as he tapped his fingers on the table. "Harper, we need to discuss your compensation package," he said, not even looking up from his phone. I nodded, expecting the bonus I'd been promised. Instead, his next words hit me like a truck. "We're cutting your salary by 50%, effective immediately." He finally looked up, his eyes cold. "It's nothing personal, just cost-cutting measures." My mouth went dry. 14 years at this company. Countless nights away from home. Birthdays missed, all for this moment. "But I just closed the Miller deal," I said, my voice barely steady. "Charles promised." Bradley cut me off with a wave of his hand. "My father pampered you all," he said with a smirk. "That ends now." I left that room with my dignity intact, but inside something had broken, and something else, something dangerous, had begun to grow. The elevator ride down to my office felt like descending into a strange new world. Everything looked the same. The chrome doors, the buzzing fluorescent lights, the familiar ding at each floor. But nothing felt right anymore. People nodded at me as they got on and off, unaware that my life had just imploded. 14 years. I'd given Vanguard Access 14 years of my life. I'd helped Charles Monroe, Bradley's father, build this company from a scrappy mid-sized firm into a logistics powerhouse. I'd sacrificed weekends, relationships, even the chance to start a family. All because I believed in what we were building. And now his son had slashed my pay like I was nothing. Back at my desk, I stared at the photos lining my wall. There I was with Charles at our first $1 million deal celebration. There we were breaking ground on our new headquarters. Each image showed years of trust and partnership. My assistant Diane poked her head in. "Everything okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired." But it wasn't exhaustion. It was betrayal. It was humiliation. It was the slow-burning realization that my loyalty had meant nothing. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in my apartment, watching the city lights, wondering what came next. 6 months ago, Charles Monroe had stood in the main hall, silver hair gleaming under the lights, voice thick with emotion as he announced his retirement. "After 30 years," he'd said, champagne glass in hand, "it's time for me to live out my golden years with Martha, seeing the world we've been too busy to explore." The room had erupted in applause. Charles was loved, respected. He'd built Vanguard from his garage into a $300 million company. Then he gestured toward Bradley, his only son. "The company stays in the family," he'd announced proudly. "My son will take us to even greater heights." I remember the doubt that flashed across some faces. Bradley had a Harvard degree, but no experience in our industry. Still, Charles believed in him. After the party, Charles had pulled me aside. "Harper, guide him if he falters," he'd whispered. "He'll need your wisdom." I'd nodded, loyal as ever. "I won't let you down." He'd squeezed my shoulder. "You never have." Now, staring at my computer screen showing the brutal salary cut, I realized Charles had left a kingdom to a spoiled prince, not a leader. And I'd been naive enough to believe things wouldn't change. The changes came fast after my pay cut. Monday morning, Bradley called an all-hands meeting in the main conference room. With a fake smile plastered across his face, he announced efficiency measures. The 401k match, gone. Health insurance coverage, reduced. Free Friday lunches, eliminated. Paid parental leave, cut in half. "We need to trim the fat," he explained, as if we were all just dead weight on his balance sheet. I watched faces fall around the room. People who'd given years to this company suddenly realizing what I already knew: we were nothing to him. Over the next weeks, the office changed. The usual buzz of energy became a nervous hum. People started leaving exactly at 5 instead of staying late. Laughter disappeared from the break room. Whispers of layoffs spread through cubicles like wildfire. I kept my head down, did my work, and smiled when needed. I played the good soldier, but inside something was building, a quiet rage, a determination. At night, I started reviewing my old files, my contracts, my emails with Charles. I wasn't sure what I was looking for yet, but I knew there had to be something. Some way to fight back. Ana Lopez and I had started at Vanguard on the same day 14 years ago. She'd risen to senior accountant while I climbed the executive ladder, but we'd stayed close. Every Friday, we grabbed lunch at the little Thai place around the corner. This Friday was no different, except for the worry lines creasing Anna's forehead. "You look stressed," I said, picking at my pad thai. She glanced around, then leaned forward. "Harper, something's wrong with the books." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "Withdrawals that don't make sense, expenses without documentation, vendors I can't verify." She lowered her voice further. "It started right after Bradley took over." I set down my fork. "Are you saying he's stealing?" "I'm saying the numbers don't add up." Anna pushed her food away. "And when I asked him about it, he told me to mind my own business, said he'd restructured some accounts." A cold feeling washed over me. Maybe my pay cut wasn't about cost saving at all. "Keep digging," I whispered, "but be careful, document everything." Anna nodded, already on it. As we walked back to the office, something shifted inside me. The seed of resistance had been planted. The following Monday, Anna slipped into my office and closed the door. Her hands were shaking as she placed a folder on my desk. "Look at this," she whispered, flipping it open to reveal a spreadsheet. "Last month, a $42,000 payment to Pinnacle Consulting Services. I can't find any record of work they've done for us. No contract, no deliverables." I frowned. "Maybe it's legitimate?" Anna shook her head. "I checked the address. It's a mail drop in Nevada." She flipped to another page. "And here, $18,500 to Creative Solutions International for market analysis. Same story, different mailbox." My mind flashed to Bradley's unexplained absence last month. He'd claimed he was at a leadership conference, but returned suspiciously tanned and relaxed. I pulled up his Instagram account. There it was. A hastily deleted post that someone had tagged him in, Bradley on a yacht in the Maldives during his supposed conference. "The same week as the $42,000 withdrawal," I murmured. Anna's eyes widened. "You think he's using company money for personal trips?" "I think," I said slowly, "that we need to start tracking Bradley Monroe's movements against these mysterious expenses." Anna nodded grimly. "I'll create a spreadsheet." The red flags were turning into blaring alarms. Over the next 2 weeks, Anna and I built what we called the Private Life Ledger, a detailed tracking system matching Bradley's activities with company expenses. We created a fake Instagram account to follow Bradley's friends and girlfriends who frequently tagged him in posts. The pattern emerged quickly and disturbingly. One weekend, Bradley at a yacht party in Miami. The following Monday, a $100,000 withdrawal for event marketing. Tuesday night, Bradley at a nightclub with bottles of champagne. Wednesday morning, $15,000 for client entertainment, with no client names listed. "Look at this," Anna whispered, pointing to her screen. "He paid an $18,500 consulting fee to someone named Melody Winters. I looked her up. She's a model he dated last summer." I felt sick. "So he's just using the company as his personal ATM?" Anna nodded grimly. "And there's more. These aren't small amounts anymore. Last week alone, he moved nearly $200,000. "Where did the money go?" I asked. "That's what scares me," Anna said. "I can't trace it. It's like it vanished." We looked at each other, the realization dawning simultaneously. Bradley wasn't just stealing. He was stockpiling. Building a nest egg. He was planning to disappear. We dug deeper. Anna discovered that 3 different consulting firms collecting payments from Vanguard all shared variations of the same address in Nevada. Each received regular payments ranging from $20,000 to $50,000 monthly. "It's a classic shell game," she explained, spreading documents across my kitchen table on Saturday night. We'd moved our investigation to my apartment, away from prying eyes. "He creates fake companies, bills Vanguard for services never rendered, then collects the money himself." I examined the incorporation documents Anna had pulled. All 3 companies were less than 6 months old, formed right after Bradley took over. "How is he authorizing these payments without oversight?" I asked. "That's the scary part," Anna said. "As CEO, he changed the approval thresholds. He can now authorize payments up to $100,000 without secondary approval. It was clever. Evil, but clever." Bradley was systematically bleeding the company dry while maintaining a facade of cost-cutting. "We need to find where the money's going," I said. "Bank accounts, offshore holdings, anything that proves he's the one benefiting." Anna nodded. "I'm working on it, but Harper, we need to be careful. If he figures out what we're doing." The unfinished sentence hung in the air, a warning neither of us needed to hear. The breakthrough came from the most ordinary source: expense reports. Bradley had been sloppy, using his company credit card for personal purchases, then having his assistant categorize them as business expenses. "Look at this," I said, showing Anna a receipt for a $5,000 bottle of wine at La Petite Maison. "It's listed as client hospitality on June 12th. Anna's eyes widened. "But you were at that dinner. It was a company event." "Exactly. And there were no clients, just Bradley and 2 models he brought along." The pattern repeated across dozens of charges: spa treatments labeled as wellness consulting, jewelry store purchases called client gifts, even a weekend at a ski chalet in Aspen categorized as a strategic planning retreat, with only Bradley attending. Most damning was a $32,000 charge at a Lamborghini dealership listed as a transportation deposit for executive travel needs. The following week, Bradley showed up in a bright yellow Lamborghini, claiming it was a gift from a friend. "He's not even trying to hide it," Anna muttered, disgusted. "No," I agreed. "He thinks he's untouchable." That night, I made a decision. It wasn't just about my pay cut anymore. It was about justice for everyone at Vanguard and stopping a thief before he destroyed everything Charles had built. The next discovery chilled us to the bone. While reviewing brokerage statements, Anna found evidence that Bradley had been quietly liquidating his company's stock holdings, converting them to cash at a suspicious rate. "He sold almost 75% of his vested shares in the last 2 months, she explained, pointing to transaction records, always just under the reporting threshold. "He's building a getaway fund," I realized, planning his escape. An alert popped up on Anna's laptop, a calendar notification from Bradley's email that his assistant had shared with the executive team, a one-way ticket to Singapore, departing in 3 weeks. "He's running," Anna whispered. "Once he's gone with that money." I nodded grimly. "We'd never get it back." We needed to act fast but carefully. Bradley controlled the company now. He could fire us in an instant if he suspected anything. We needed leverage, proof so solid it couldn't be denied, and someone with the power to stop him. There was only one person who fit that description: Charles Monroe, Bradley's father and the company's founder. "We need to contact Charles," I said quietly, "but first we need to build a case so strong he can't ignore it." Anna nodded. 3 weeks. We have 3 weeks to take Bradley down." I sat in my car outside Charles Monroe's favorite coffee shop in Tuscany, heart pounding. Finding him hadn't been easy. He and Martha were traveling the world, posting occasional photos from different countries. But his old assistant had let slip they were spending the summer in their Italian villa. When he walked in, he looked tanned and relaxed. Retired life suited him. For a moment, I almost backed out. Why ruin his peace? But then I thought of Vanguard, his life's work, being drained by his son. "Harper?" His surprise turned to warmth as he spotted me. "What on earth are you doing in Italy?" Over espresso, I gently laid out what we'd found. His face darkened with each detail. "I should have known," he said finally, voice hollow with pain. 5 years ago, Bradley embezzled money from his previous company, got caught up in drugs, bad crowds. Charles stared into his coffee. I paid it all back, kept it quiet. He swore he'd changed, begged for another chance. His eyes met mine, shining with unshed tears. I wanted to believe him, my only son. The admission broke my heart. Charles had been conned by his own child. "I'm so sorry," I said. Charles straightened his shoulders. "Don't be. You did right coming to me. Now tell me your plan." Charles insisted on flying back to Chicago immediately. "My son, my responsibility," he said firmly. We met at a small hotel downtown, away from prying eyes. Charles looked a decade older than he had in Italy, the weight of Bradley's betrayal etched on his face. Anna spread the evidence across the hotel room desk. Financial records, photos, timestamps, all meticulously organized. "The quarterly board meeting is in 5 days, I explained. "All the major investors will be there. So will Bradley." Charles studied the files, his hands trembling slightly. You're proposing we expose him there? Publicly? I nodded. It's the only way to make sure he can't wiggle out of it. Once the investors know, he can't sweep it under the rug. Charles fell silent, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline, the empire he'd built over 30 years, now in jeopardy because of his son. He'll face criminal charges, Charles said softly. Prison time. Yes, I answered honestly. He's stolen over $2 million. That's prison time. Charles closed his eyes, absorbing the blow. Then he looked at me, resolution hardening his gaze. I need absolute, irrefutable proof, something no one can question. I reached for his hand. We'll give you more than proof, Charles. We'll give you justice. Bradley's executive assistant, Lena Parker, had worked for Charles for years before Bradley inherited her. She was loyal, discreet, and as we discovered, increasingly disgusted with Bradley's behavior. I approached her cautiously in the parking garage after work. Can we talk? Somewhere private? At a quiet diner 10 blocks from the office, Lena's professional facade cracked. He's horrible, she whispered, eyes darting nervously. The things I've seen, Harper, the calls I've had to make, the women I've had to pay off. We know about the money, I said gently. Charles is back. We're building a case. Lena's eyes widened. Charles is here? In Chicago? I nodded. We need your help, Lena. Bradley trusts you. You see everything. She hesitated only briefly before reaching into her purse and pulling out a small notebook. I've been keeping records, she admitted. Dates, times, phone numbers. I knew someday someone would need to know. She slid the notebook across the table. Inside were detailed notes of Bradley's activities, including a burner phone number he used for private business. There's more, she said, lowering her voice. He keeps a separate laptop in his office safe. The combination is his birthday, 02-15-88. He's not very creative. I felt a surge of hope. With Lena's help, the net was tightening. Anna, Lena, and I worked through the night in a hotel room, assembling what we called the case file. It had to be bulletproof, organized, verified, and impossible to dismiss. Anna created a financial timeline showing every suspicious transaction, matched with Bradley's movements and purchases. Lena provided emails, calendar entries, and screenshots of text messages showing Bradley's knowledge and intent. I wrote the executive summary, a damning 5-page document outlining the scheme in simple, undeniable terms. We hired a forensic accountant under strict NDA to verify our findings. His conclusion was unequivocal, clear evidence of systematic embezzlement and financial fraud. We need backup copies, I said, paranoia creeping in. If Bradley gets wind of this, Anna nodded grimly. Already handled. Triple encrypted, stored in 3 separate cloud locations. Even if one gets compromised, the others are safe. Charles reviewed everything, his face growing more pained with each page. My son, he murmured, what have you become? The case file was complete, nearly 200 pages of evidence, all pointing to one conclusion. Bradley Monroe had stolen over $2 million and was planning to disappear with the money. Now, we just needed to keep our plans secret until the board meeting. 4 days away. Bradley grew noticeably tense as the board meeting approached. He prowled the halls, eyes suspicious, asking odd questions about who was accessing what files. Rumors spread that he'd ordered IT to audit everyone's email. He knows something's up, Anna whispered during our daily coffee break. My stomach nodded. We need to throw him off track. That afternoon, I requested a meeting with Bradley. In his sleek office, once Charles's office, I forced myself to smile warmly. I've been thinking about your vision for the company, I began, the lie bitter on my tongue. The cost-cutting measures? They're working. Our margins are already improving. Bradley leaned back, surprised but pleased. His guard visibly lowered. Finally someone who gets it, he said. I nodded enthusiastically. I've drafted some additional suggestions, areas where we could streamline further. I slid a folder across his desk, a completely fabricated report I'd stayed up all night creating. He flipped through it, nodding. Good work, Harper. Maybe I was wrong about you. I just needed time to adjust to the new direction, I said smoothly. Change can be hard. As I left his office, I caught his reflection in the glass door. He was smiling smugly, convinced he'd won me over. Perfect. Let him think that. Let him drop his guard. We need insurance, Anna insisted during our late-night strategy session. If anything goes wrong at the board meeting, if Bradley somehow blocks us, we need a backup plan. Charles nodded slowly. What do you suggest? A journalist, Anna said firmly. Someone reliable, discreet, but ready to break the story if needed. I thought about it. Mia Zhang at the Tribune. She covers white-collar crime, has solid sources in the DA's office. I trust her. The next day, I met Mia at a noisy food court where we wouldn't be overheard. I explained just enough. A CEO embezzling funds, a plan to expose him. I can't give you details yet, I said quietly, but I'm going to send you a secure file. Don't open it unless you hear from me or unless something happens to me. Mia's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. You think you're in danger? I thought about the millions Bradley stood to lose if caught. Just being cautious. That night, I sent Mia an encrypted file with instructions. If you don't hear from me by Friday at noon, or if you hear I've been fired or had an accident, publish everything. It felt dramatic, even paranoid. But with millions at stake and Bradley growing more erratic, I couldn't take chances. Our safety net was in place. The quarterly board meeting was set for Thursday at 2 p.m. in the main conference room. All major investors would attend, along with the executive team and Bradley, of course. Charles, Anna, and I finalized the plan the night before. Charles would arrive last after everyone was seated. The element of surprise was crucial. Bradley couldn't give in time to prepare excuses. Once I present the evidence, I explained, Lena will bring in the police officers waiting downstairs. Everything is arranged with the financial crimes unit. Anna looked pale. What if he denies everything? What if the board believes him over us? Charles shook his head. They won't. The evidence is too strong. That night, I barely slept. I kept picturing Bradley's face when he realized he was caught. Would he be angry? Scared? Would he threaten us? Try to run? At dawn, I gave up on sleep and sat by my window, watching the city wake up. In 12 hours, everything would change. Vanguard would be in chaos, but it would be saved from Bradley's theft. My phone buzzed with a text from Anna. Ready? I took a deep breath and replied, ready. The countdown to Bradley's downfall had begun. We needed one final piece of evidence, something so visual and damning that Bradley couldn't possibly deny it. Lena provided the perfect opportunity. Every Tuesday, Bradley meets his contact from Nevada in the executive lounge after hours, she revealed. They exchange documents, flash drives. I'm supposed to make sure the floor is empty. The executive lounge had security cameras. With Charles's authorization, we had IT redirect the feed to a secure server where we could record it without Bradley's knowledge. Tuesday evening, we watched through the remote feed as Bradley entered the empty lounge, checked his surroundings, then greeted a man in an expensive suit. They spoke briefly. Then Bradley handed over an envelope and received a small flash drive in return. What's on the drive? Anna whispered as we watched from my apartment. Account numbers, Charles said grimly. Offshore accounts where he's hiding the money. We recorded everything. The timestamp on the video matched perfectly with a $50,000 withdrawal from the company account that same morning. It was the smoking gun, Bradley on camera, engaged in what was clearly illicit financial activity. We've got him, I said quietly, a strange mix of sadness and triumph washing over me. Charles nodded, his face a mask of pain. Yes, we've got him. Tomorrow was the board meeting. Our case was complete. Wednesday morning, panic erupted. Bradley stormed into my office, face flushed with rage. Who have you been talking to? He demanded, slamming my door so hard the glass rattled. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. What are you talking about? He thrust his phone in my face. On the screen was a text from an unknown number. She knows about the money. They all do. Board meeting equals trap. Someone had warned him, but who? Only Anna, Charles, Lena, and I knew the full plan. I don't know what that means, I said calmly, but it sounds like you might have a problem, Bradley. His eyes narrowed. If you're plotting something, Harper, I'll destroy you. After he left, I frantically called Anna. Bradley's been tipped off. Someone betrayed us. That night, I returned home to find my apartment doors slightly ajar. Inside, my files had been rifled through, drawers left open. Nothing was stolen. It was a message. Bradley was searching for evidence. What he didn't know was that we kept nothing physical. Everything was digital, encrypted, backed up in multiple locations. Still, the violation shook me. I texted Charles. He knows something's coming, but he doesn't know what or when. We proceed as planned. The stage was set for the final act. Thursday, 2 p.m. The main conference room hummed with quiet conversation as board members and investors took their seats. Bradley sat at the head of the table, looking confident but with tension visible in his jaw. I sat 3 seats down, heart hammering but face composed. Anna was near the back, laptop ready. Lena stood by the door, hand on the handle, waiting for her cue. At exactly 2:05, Charles Monroe walked in. The room fell silent. Bradley's face drained of color. "Dad? What are you?" Charles took the empty chair directly opposite Bradley. "Continue, son. You are about to start the meeting." Bradley gathered himself, forcing a smile. "Of course. Welcome, everyone. We have excellent Q2 results to share." I stood up. "Actually, we have a more urgent matter to discuss." I nodded to Anna, who connected her laptop to the projector. The first slide appeared. Financial fraud investigation, Bradley Monroe. Bradley leapt to his feet. "This is ridiculous. Dad, Harper's upset about some cost-cutting measures." Charles raised his hand, silencing him. "Sit down, Bradley. Let's hear what they found." And so it began. The systematic exposure of Bradley's crimes, with irrefutable evidence projected for all to see. As the evidence unfolded slide by slide, the boardroom atmosphere shifted from confusion to shock to outrage. Investors whispered furiously. Board members stared at Bradley with growing anger. Bradley's face cycled through emotions: arrogance, fear, desperation. "These are lies," he shouted, pounding the table. "Harper fabricated everything because I cut her salary." Charles spoke quietly. "The surveillance video, Bradley. Explain that." On screen played the damning footage. Bradley in the executive lounge exchanging envelopes and flash drives. That was a personal matter," Bradley stammered. "Matched to a $50,000 company withdrawal that morning." Anna added, voice steady. Bradley's eyes darted to the door, calculating escape routes. But Lena stood firmly in place. "I built this company," Bradley suddenly yelled, desperation creeping in. "I made it better, stronger." I met his gaze across the table. "No," I said clearly. "You didn't? Your father built it. I helped. He just tried to steal it." Charles nodded to Lena, who opened the door. 2 plainclothes detectives entered. "Bradley Monroe," one said formally, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty." As they led him out in handcuffs, Bradley locked eyes with me one last time. His look of hatred burned into my memory. But it was over. The next few days passed in a blur. News of Bradley's arrest didn't leak to the press. Charles's influence ensured the matter stayed private for now. The board convened an emergency session to address the leadership vacuum. Charles declined to return as CEO. "My time has passed," he said simply. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nominated me for interim CEO. "Harper Quinn built this company alongside me," he told the board. "She saved it from my son's greed. There's no one I trust more." The vote was unanimous. By Friday afternoon, I sat in the CEO's office, my office now, still processing everything that had happened. Anna poked her head in. "How's it feel, boss?" I gave a shaky laugh. "Surreal." The financial team had already frozen all suspicious accounts. Most of the stolen money was recovered. Bradley, released on bail but facing multiple felony charges, had disappeared from public view. Holed up with expensive lawyers, no doubt. "What happens now?" Anna asked softly. I looked around the office, noticing details I'd change, envisioning the company's future. No more fear. No more toxic leadership. "Now," I said, "we rebuild. The right way." For the first time in months, I felt myself smile. Really smile. My first act as CEO was to reverse Bradley's cost-cutting measures. I restored the 401k match, reinstated the original health insurance plan, and brought back paid parental leave. But I didn't stop there. I wrote personal checks to every employee whose salary had been cut, making them whole for what they'd lost. "You can't do that," the CFO protested. "It's your personal money." "It's my choice," I answered simply. I walked the office floors personally, stopping at desks, learning names, listening to concerns. People were cautious at first, waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. We rehired key talent Bradley had pushed out. Among them was Marcus Lee, our brilliant product developer who'd quit rather than implement Bradley's short-sighted cuts to quality control. "Why would I come back?" he asked bluntly when I called. "Because it's not the same company anymore." I told him, "Come see for yourself." He did, and stayed. By month's end, the change was palpable. The nervous whispers were replaced by laughter. The rigid 9-to-5 culture relaxed into a focus on results, not FaceTime. In the cafeteria, I overheard someone say, "It's like we can breathe again." That, more than anything, told me we were on the right track. 3 months later, the quarterly board meeting painted a very different picture from the last one. Profits were up 18%. Employee turnover had dropped to almost zero. We'd landed 2 major new clients who specifically cited our people-first reputation as a deciding factor. Charles attended the meeting, beaming with pride as I presented the results. The shadow of Bradley's betrayal still pained him. His son had taken a plea deal, avoiding trial but accepting a 5-year sentence. But healing had begun. "You've done more than save the company," Charles told me afterward. "You've made it better than it ever was." I shook my head. We did it together. All of us. My leadership team now included Anna as head of finance and Lena as chief of staff. We'd created a new company culture based on transparency, fairness, and mutual respect. No more secrets. No more fear. That Friday, we reinstituted the tradition of company lunches. Not just free food, but a time when everyone, from entry-level to executives, ate together and shared ideas. As I looked around the buzzing cafeteria, I felt a deep sense of peace. The betrayal that had shattered my world 6 months ago had led to something I could never have imagined. A stronger company, a true community, and a chance to lead with integrity. 1 year to the day after Bradley cut my salary in half, I stood in the CEO's office, my office, gazing out at the Chicago skyline. The evening light turned the glass towers to gold, much like the company's prospects. Vanguard Axis had just been named one of the best places to work by Forbes. Our stock had hit an all-time high. The scandal that nearly destroyed us had become a distant memory, replaced by a legacy of ethical leadership and innovation. I heard a knock and turned to find Charles in the doorway. "Not interrupting, am I?" "Never," I smiled, gesturing him in. He joined me at the window. "I was wrong to give Bradley this company," he said quietly, "but maybe that was the only way for it to end up where it truly belonged." I felt a lump in my throat. "With the right people running it." "With you running it," he corrected gently. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk deepened. So much had changed. The woman who once sat stunned in this very room, hearing her salary was being cut in half, now stood as the leader of an empire. "You know what Bradley never understood?" I said finally. "A company isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's people. Their dreams, their work, their trust." Charles nodded. "And that's why you'll succeed where he failed." I smiled. He was right. This was just the beginning.